But in scriptures, what they use is that they use 4 letters to represent his name.
Right.
The 4 letters are, these 4 letters are Yud, He, Vav, He. In other words, YHWH.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yahweh. Or Jehovah. All right. I am going to wrap up now. Got it? Thank you. We will have to leave it there, brethren. But next week, we will continue to look at why we call him God. All right? Thank you so very much for your attention and your participation. I'm inviting you to come back next week as we continue this very important study. Shall we stand as we just close off with prayer? Great God and our Father, we are thankful that you have always blessed us. And you have blessed us this afternoon with your written word. And so, God, we pray that you'll just keep reminding us of the need to search and to find you. And help us that as we search and as we learn more about you, we will behave more like you and we will be fitted for eternity, is our asking through Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Thank you very much.
All right. Good evening and happy Sabbath, everyone. All right. I want to thank Elder Elliott for conducting a Bible class. And I hope next week we can come for what will not be the final night. But we will continue until it's done. So that is good. And I'm glad that persons have turned out for it because it's a very good topic. It's a very interesting topic. And more truth can be spoken and discussed when we are here than from places outside of the sanctuary. I was mentioning to a friend of mine today that truth is a peculiar thing. Truth, or the characteristics of truth, is not determined by certain things. And I'll say this quite clearly and bluntly. Truth is not determined by how many persons are seeing it. Truth is not determined by how loud you're seeing it. Truth is not determined by your passion for it. Truth is not determined by whether or not it sounds right. But truth is one of those peculiar things that's determined by whether or not it's true. Simple. Truth. And so we search for truth. We don't search for things that just sound nice. But as we move into another segment of our evening's proceedings, we are delighted to welcome some members of some organizations, some very crucial organizations who will be with us today. And to start things off, we have members from the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disability. That person is online presently, and we'll be giving further introductions a bit later. But in studio, I said it, in studio today we have Mr. Gordon Brown, who represents us from the Office of Utilities Regulation, and he is the coordinator for public affairs, right, Mr. Brown? That is correct. I'm glad I got myself out of trouble there. So he's the coordinator for public affairs. And remember that in the discussion today, it's not just about, all right, I have this problem, what you can do for me. But as individuals, as stewards of things that are around us, as stewards of Christ, we also have to bear in mind that it is our responsibility to ensure that we don't just do things our way, but we do things the way they ought to be done. And we do things the way that are in line with what the expected rules and regulations, etc. are. It should not be said that as Adventists we are breaking certain rules or we're not doing things, and ignorance is no excuse. So I see another member of our OUR team who is joining us. Colleen. All right, welcome, Colleen. OUR Information Centers Coordinator. I have to remember that. So Colleen is here with us. And I'm glad you guys can give them your undivided attention as Mr. Brown sets up. But in the meantime, whilst he's setting up, I don't think you're not quite ready. Oh, you're connecting. All right. I was about to start song service, but probably his thing is going to be a little bit more endearing to the ear than my song service. But as he comes, maybe we could just have one chorus. Anyone has a single chorus? Anyone has a chorus? He's able. All right. Whoever raised it is going to sing it. He's able. He's able. I know my Lord is able to carry me through. The brokenhearted, the captive free. He made the lame to walk again, and he caused the blind to see. He's able, I know he's able. I know my Lord is able to carry me through. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Next one. Another song. Who gave me that first one? Why that one come from old school, Maurice? It's a long time. I don't hear that one. I am so glad I've got salvation in time. Oh, my Lord. Oh, my Lord. What shall I do? And it's about to trip out into hush. It's a long time I don't hear this song, you know. Hush, hush, shh. Somebody's calling my name. Oh, hush, hush. Somebody's calling my name. Oh, my Lord. Oh, my Lord. What shall I do? All right. Thank you very much for your lively singing. And I'm going to turn over to Mr. Gordon Brown. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. I take it that up more. That means I'm too shy. Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I give thanks to Sister Carolyn Wright and Elder Chana for having had us here. And I am Gordon Brown from the Office of Utilities Regulation, regulating utilities for the benefit of all. And that means every single person inside here, including that little young man right there, who does not presently pay utility bills. Okay. I'm told that I have to do it this way. Okay, good. So thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you for the opportunity to share. The information that I have to share really is for everyone, not just the persons who pay utility bills. Why is it important to know what the Office of Utilities Regulation does? By the way, we have an online audience. I take it that they're able to see me on the Zoom. So you're checking. Okay, good. I have shown you the mission statement. A lot of words. A lot of words. But it's basically saying that we have a responsibility to ensure that utility services exist. Oh, great. Thank you so much. Pointer. Utility service for everyone can't just exist. It has to improve and continue in perpetuity until that day. We serve as the regulator for the electricity, water, and sewerage, and also the telecoms sectors. However, in the telecoms sector, we only do the internet and telephone. Cable services are dealt with through the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica. We have here our objectives, and what these are setting out is a mix of ensuring that utility consumers are protected, not cared for, not given rates that they want, which is $1 instead of $100 for argument's sake, but given rates that are economically sound. And also there are utility consumer protections built in to all of our operations in relation to regulating utility services. That part I should mention about acting, the bottom one, about acting impartially. This one here, really crucial, because we do not report to a political representative. We report to the cabinet secretary. An office of the utilities regulation does not report to a specific politician. The reason why this is so is because we don't want to have a politician directing us and our activities. We report to the cabinet office. Ooh.
It's going to be kind of hard, but there's space at the front. And can I just implore you guys to come closer if you can? We can't change the slides right now, so there's that. So he's reading it, so we're going to have to listen a little bit or come closer. There's space at the front, because I can read it from the front. So,
well, you are in fact welcome to come forward. Please do.
I can read it from the front.
I do not bite very hard. I nip, not bite hard. Please join us closer up front.
You guys can come closer. I mean, there's no harm in that. But I'm going to ask you to settle down in the quiet with talking for me, please. And those who can make it closer, make it closer. All right, thank you.
Righto. It's important to establish that we are not a consumer advocacy group, body, or agency. That's not what we do. We're the regulator, not consumer advocacy agency or a body. We're structured here in relation to the part that deals with utility consumers into two parts. The Department for Consumer and Public Affairs. The Consumer Affairs handles direct connection with utility consumers, and I fall under the corporate communications side, which is the public affairs side.
Sorry, Mr. Brown, would you prefer questions at the end or during?
If people have a question, let's do this, please.
Okay.
So it can be done at any stage. It does not have to be left to the end, but instead of everybody just getting up and speaking at once,
Understand.
school teacher style,
Understand.
good old days. We have, in fact, set standards for how we treat you if you come to us with a concern that has to be addressed. And that is covered by our customer charter for the Consumer Affairs Department. I need to hasten to mention that you have a concern with a utility. The provider has, through the OUR, set up, each of them has set up a complaints handling process, a procedure, a set of procedures, whereby you go to them, you make the complaint to them, and we prefer that you document everything, write it, email it. If you go with a letter, please make sure that the person who is handling your matter copies it, or you give them a copy already prepared. Have the person write their name, sign it, and date it, and give you back the copy to say that this is my proof that I came to you and documented my concern. Why is it important to document a concern? Elder, I called you a thief while we're in the men's room. You come outside and Gordon Brown called me a thief, and I say, me? What proof do you have that I called you a thief? Was there a recording? Like Jesus said, were there two witnesses? How do you prove it? Once more, please, in the mic.
I can't.
Document your concerns, because you go to the utility provider and you speak with somebody, and it is true that you came and the person took your paper and dropped it among some other papers, and in the year 2027 they find it. How does that help you? Document your concerns. You have that paper copy or the email, what is called a thread, to prove that you did in fact submit. I have a hand up here, Elder.
So suppose you bring a letter to, this is letter to the OUR, letter to
letter to the utility.
Suppose you bring a letter to them and the person at the front desk to them not sign nothing.
Then you have right away a complaint to handle with the OUR.
Okay.
But since you are there, then it's best to have somebody else, more likely at a supervisor level, to discuss that, because we have heard that. It actually does exist, believe it or not. The concern about getting to make your utility concern known to the utility provider is because they are the ones that must handle the issue first. After you've had that opportunity for the utility provider to fix the problem, and they say, this is what the situation is, this is how we will handle it. If you're not satisfied with that approach, that is when you come to OUR and you use our appeals process. The appeals process is basically saying that OUR, please handle. And there's no charge whatsoever for utility consumers to have their case investigated. It is free. There's a set process. And so the brochure that you can get will tell you. But it is set, it is structured. It's not arbitrary. I wish to really spend a little moment here on guaranteed standards, but I have a hand up from the gentleman. Elder, may I take it? He doesn't have a mic, but can you project your voice through that? Thank you, sir.
What if we have an issue with this power company, this current power company, and would like another power company, thus alleviating the monopolization of the power company?
Well, that is something that
How
the
do we
law
go about it?
takes. And so to change the law, you'd have had to speak with the Minister of Energy.
So we can't speak to you or you are.
No, it's pointless. We don't set law. We follow law. Good afternoon, my brother.
Why is it, you see? A light would went from 3,000 to 15 and 7. I was made aware the other day by somebody from JPS that the lights that are around me, people that are around me that is not paying for the light. We are paying for their light. That is why our bill went from 3,000, 6,000 to 17,000. How we deal with that?
Well, first of all, with truth. And I think that everybody needs to be focused on truth.
Yeah, laptop on the TV and watch
Yeah,
on
just
YouTube.
say something. I think everybody should be in agreement that truth, Jesus
Huh?
is truth. And so truth known, what you just said is not really the truth as to why your bill would have gone to that. However, what is true is that persons stealing light don't pay, but the persons who have the bills pay a component for the persons who steal light. And that is called losses in general. But there are different types of losses.
That's what I was
Oh,
asking.
no. I'm saying that moving from $5,000 to $50,000 is not caused by persons.
From 5 to 17,000,
Even if it-
19,000.
No, I'm just saying that even if it was to $50,000, it wouldn't be because of people stealing light, generally speaking. The issue of whether you in particular might have a situation where somebody is stealing light should be addressed, though, and you need to make sure to take a look at your premises to
No,
see if
there's
somebody
no
is connected.
there's no connection on my premises.
Right, but
We are paying our light bill, and every month I can show them to you if it come to the test. Where this week you get 6,000, next week is 17,000, next
But-
month is
but the fact of the
17,000.
matter is
What
that
would cause that?
I'm sharing with you that it is not because of covering the cost of people who are stealing light. It is really complicated, but the simple part is if there's nobody stealing your particular light, then it means that you've either changed the usage, meaning that you're turning on the AC unit a bit more,
We don't have any AC.
or
The fans
you have
are plugged out at night during
or-
the day. The fridge is
let me
plugged out
run
during
through
the
the
day.
R's, please. If it is not the AC, it could be that you have a defective meter.
No, it's
or
a
it
smart
could-
meter I have that they just put in.
It doesn't mean that it is not defective. It's a device, so it could be wrong in terms of the readings.
So what can be done?
So the idea is that there are multiple options as to why it could be. So if your usage pattern has not changed, this is where you write to the utility and say, please investigate why my bill moved. But that segue, that allows me to segue, change and move seamlessly into the aspect that I wanted to raise, which is the guaranteed standards. I'll just come to that guaranteed standards portion now because of what he said. The guaranteed standards that OER put in place to protect you are rules for quality of service level. A lot of people in our surveys do not know anything about guaranteed standards, and yet they're so crucial to protecting you. Guaranteed standards, I use as an example here, the fact that the
One second,
gentleman...
Mr. Brown. Can we have one discussion, please? I'm seeing too much. If there's a mic provided for persons who are willing to discuss, but otherwise, it's poor taste to have somebody come into our church and we're having our own conversation, despite it may be something relating to what he's mentioning. Your hand is raised, but allow him to acknowledge you in the same speed. All right. So let's see what he has to say. He could acknowledge you now, or he may choose to in a few minutes.
Thank you so much, Elder. The reality is that the guaranteed standards protect you, the utility consumer, for JPS and NWCA. However, people do not know, do not take the time to study up and learn about these. And what our brother just shared is that his bill moved from this position to this position. And he has the right as a utility consumer under the guaranteed standards put in place by the OUR to ask JPS for an investigation. He's not to pay for that investigation. It could be the meter, since he has declared that there's nobody stealing his light, meaning that there's nobody connecting to him, that he's aware of, by the way. Because people do it in certain ways that you might not realize. Just be careful. It may be, and then you find out after the fact. But guaranteed standards provide for you having JPS do an investigation. You do not need to pay that particular bill. We recommend that although the guaranteed standard says you don't need to pay that particular month's bill, pay the regular amount. Don't skip the bill payment. Pay the regular amount. And while the guaranteed standard says that your investigation is going on, they are not to cut off your electricity or your water supply. If they do, that's a breach and they owe you money. They are to make sure that if they cut off your supply, once the error is found out, oh, this is a case which is being investigated, oh my, put it on right now. They have hours, mere hours, to reconnect your supply, or else again, they owe you money. Who knew that? Please put up your hand if you knew that information. The gentleman is going to ask a question. Put down your hand, please. If anybody in the audience knew that, please raise your hand.
Knew that
one gentleman, two persons. A lady at the back there put up her hand. So that is 1% of
no, I'm just
the
making sure.
Audience.
Just making sure that they know what they respond. Who knew?
Please check, Elder.
Pardon?
Please check.
No, the question was asked for persons who knew that there are situations when the utility company may owe you money, or that if an investigation is going on, they shouldn't be discontinuing the utility from your residence. Question was asked, do we know that that is actually something that is written in law? Nobody knew that? And that you can be compensated. In other words, you can get money back for it.
One gentleman.
All right, one person knew that.
So that's 0 point something percent.
Failing grade.
That is why we welcome the opportunity to come and speak with you, because this is information that is being shared to persons who never knew that. Ooh, that's more like it. This is information that is being shared to persons who never knew that. That is not the only thing that is pertinent to this discussion. Before we take the gentleman in the gray shirt, the reality is that you have hours to be reconnected after the error is identified, or else they owe you money again. Hours.
Even if it's weekend.
Hours.
Okay, just checking.
HOURS with an S, not a Z.
Friday night or Saturday morning.
Hours.
All right.
And in tandem with that reality, also is the fact that they have a fixed amount of time, 30 days, 30 working days to complete the investigation. And they must complete the investigation and get back to you with a response. if they have not finished the investigation at the time that the 30 working days runs out, they must get back to you. In other words, OER has put in place the rule that they cannot ignore you, forget you, park you, push you aside, dump you, or don't bother with you. Or else they owe you money again. You have to be compensated if they don't get back to you in that time frame. So the guaranteed standards are crucial to you. The gentleman in the gray shirt. The gentleman in the gray shirt.
A point is a point, you know. So when it's not so, when it don't get to be so pointed right away, I kind of feel like, you know. But anyways, I was just trying to say because persons were chattering, and the reason why they were having the chatter was because I believe something was not addressed in terms of the reason why their thing went up higher because of the persons around them. And you are saying it's not necessarily because of the persons around them.
Oh, stop a moment from the
But
it's not necessarily, no, I said it's not. Not.
Exactly. But then something else you said suggested that there was an overall contribution, right? Of
There
persons who weren't paying.
Everybody who does not pay,
Right.
the power company collects from the persons who pay.
Right. So I believe that needed more explanation, and that's the reason why persons were chatting. So that's all I was coming up to
Thank
explain.
you so much for sharing that.
No problem.
I didn't want to spend time on that, but may I please, Elder, with your permission?
If we're awaiting an answer, let's listen, please. Come on, guys. This is really poor taste. Can we just listen up? Thank you.
Okay, this comes up very often. It comes up in Parliament. It comes up in council meeting at the parish, not councils anymore, but parish corporations. It comes up everywhere, and it comes up in church. The reason why you pay if you are connected is because somebody has to pay for it. It is covered under a system called losses. Now, you have different types of losses. You have categories which are just physics, and then you have the so-called human side of losses. You have losses from engineering, what would we say now? Mistakes, call it that, which is a human type error, whereby somebody didn't see that over here is getting too much power and over there is not getting enough power, and transfer the system connection to the area that needs the demand, that has the excess demand. There are systems in place for technical losses, whereby you send power across the power lines, and from here where it starts to here where it ends, little by little, the electricity dips as it goes along. That's a technical loss. So on the part of the human loss, whereby people have to pay for those, the bill payers have to pay for those who do not pay. It is a part of the tariff. It is a structure. There's research that is put in, and because OER is constantly saying, do your research, utility provider, and find ways, they have come up with ways such as what is called the RAMI. You've heard of RAMI? Anybody heard of RAMI? Please put up your hand. RAMI is a system. It's just one of the types of systems that they've put in place, whereby a group of persons living in a community, each person's utility meter, the power meter, is in a foolproof, tamper-proof box. And there are banks with maybe 6 of those together as a cluster. So you don't have an actual meter in your home or at your premises. That is a system whereby people can't tamper with the meter or the connection to the meter to bypass the meter. That's just one of the many systems that they've put in place. They've put in place other systems, and this is because the tariff structure that we've put in place as the OER puts demands on the utility to find economic ways of preventing theft. We have heard, and the utility has heard too, whereby persons known to go, when JPS goes through, somebody shouts out and you see lines coming off, and then somebody shouts out again, all clear, and the lines go back up. And the politicians have been at pains to say to people, but as we know, the reality is that it still persists. Until people stop stealing light, that will not stop being paid for. The stolen component will not stop being paid for by those who pay. There are two hands up, but I'm not sure if the gentleman wants to.
There was a hand from Mr.
Brother in the gray
one
shirt.
second. From Brother Atkins.
Is it related to this? Yeah. Okay, I don't remember now.
One
this
quick
is just
question.
one aspect. To many things that we have to share.
That's fine.
Right.
One quick question, because I'm just feeling like
Sure.
the issue is still not being resolved. How is that allocated? So all this that needs to be dealt with in terms of what's not being paid, how is it allocated? So you have told us about some
measures.
What's the name of the thing that you
measures that are
no,
put
not
in
the,
place.
not the measures.
The RAMI is just one.
Yes, but I'm saying, how is the allocation done? I believe that will go
What
more to the meat
allocation
of the
is
matter,
about? What's the
so
allocation
persons
you're
can
talking about?
understand. How is it allocated to paying electricity users? How is it allocated? What's the means of allocation? Because that's relevant for people to know what they're paying for. Do you understand what I'm saying?
It's complex, it's in the tariff, but I don't think now would be the practical time to get into all that type
Well,
of detail.
I think that is what would probably be more
I know,
fruitful.
but that would give me, if you have an hour and a half, I could get into it.
No, we don't.
But the reality is that it would take you an hour and a half, literally an hour and a half, just to deal with that aspect. And it's in the tariff on the losses. But keep in mind, though, that you can have a look at the tariff, which is on the OER's website. I'm being given a wrap-up signal, of course. 5 minutes.
There are 3 more hands in the audience.
Okay, good. But the fact of the matter is that I have some other information which I needed to share with you.
Sure.
But there was a gentleman in the blue, somebody in the blue shirt that had a hand up.
I think a gentleman in the red shirt had his hand up very long time.
Yes, and
no, he
there
had
was
his
a
hand up
gentleman
a
in the
very
blue
long.
shirt as well.
Yes.
But this gentleman had been behind, next in line to the gentleman in the gray.
Yes, good evening.
Blessings to you, sir.
I'm a little bit puzzling because in time like this, where so much technology is hanging around, why JPS allowing for stealing to continue with the light? I believe because...
Sir, can I stop you there, please?
Hold on.
Sorry, no, I need to stop you.
Yes.
I need to stop you. Why I need to stop you?
Yeah.
Because you said something and we need to deal with fact,
Yeah.
truth. JPS is not allowing it.
And you know why the reason I say that?
No, I'm stopping you because you're saying something
Yes,
that's not
listen to me.
true. So let's go back to that.
Listen, the reason
Change
I
up the
believe,
words a little bit so
hold
that
on.
we get closer to
The
truth,
reason
please.
why I believe, if there wasn't a way for they to collect money off who paying, they would have find a way to dismantle all of it. So why can't they put a system in place that when they chop illegal wire, the whole thing just go down them?
That has happened, and they have systems in place. And because, for instance, they have a transformer protection program, whereby one of those protection mechanisms to prevent stealing was put in place. And according to the JPS, last year that happened. And they turned off the power because they didn't replace the transformer. Transformers are millions of dollars. Understandably, it's true, they're US dollar heavy expenditure. So each transformer that we call get lick, boom, and you smell, or the transformer is DED, right? Dead. Nobody correcting me? Nobody listening to me then?
Yeah, but we understand the language, sir.
Okay, sir. But I'm saying that the Transformer Protection Program is one such, but how it is managed by the JPS is that when they tried cutting off an entire section of the population, they cut off persons who are paying as well. And so OER directed them, because you have paying customers, you can't cut off the whole community. So refine your research, go do some more research to target specifically the street, for argument's sake, the couple of houses, for argument's sake, and then come back with a system that will prevent the entire community from being disconnected. Because this gentleman here that's operating the camera, if your power gets cut off, just you're the only person in this whole community here, would you be happy that you're cut off and everybody else thief in light, but you're paying? No. Okay. That's the principle. OER has to protect utility consumers. And so we urge people, urge is urge. Don't thief light, don't thief water. But the fact of the matter is it keeps happening. And until the research is done and systems are put in place, and the politicians and residences and residential areas are all what they call clean, pure in heart, for they shall see who. Then those losses that pertain to the stealing of the light will persist. Blue shirt gentleman, I don't know. Oh no, the gentleman in the blue he has his hand up before the lady in the green. I didn't see her hand before. But remember, there are so many utility consumers here, but the guaranteed standards, I need to have you all learn more about them, because at the time frame, I can't go through with everything that I was hoping to speak about. But please.
Hi, good
my
evening.
sister.
I don't know if you're addressing anything pertaining to NWC. Now, I have a gross with them. For years, I've been paying my water bill, and I have receipts up to 1989. I got a bill for 100 and a whole lot. When they have the here that I'm living in, they gave us 2 times. They have some what do you call it now, where you can pay. No, I don't owe any money. I went there when they have this amnesty, right? And I spoke to the lady. I said, listen, here is my bill, and I've been paying for years. She said, okay, I might have little 1 cent and so on, so I'm to pay $10,000. At the time I paid, and I keep on paying. Another time, they come back with the same thing, and I keep on paying. No, they keep sending me this bill, and it's going on and going on, and every month I pay my water bill. No, I went down to Water Commission 2 times, and I spoke to a lady who seems to be an AI, because it's just one thing she keeps telling me. I gave her my name and everything, and she said to me that I have to pay the water bill because they don't have, I carry a whole big bag of my receipts. And I said to her, here's my receipt from 89, I have a receipt. She said she don't want to see anything. All she know that they have, the record that they have for me is from 2008. So I said, if I have my bills to show you from 89, why is it you're telling that it's 2008? That means, I wonder if I'm talking to a human or I'm talking to a machine or something. Because the same thing she keep, I have to pay. However, I went back another time and it's the same thing. So I don't know if they program these people that sit at the front desk to continue to say the same thing. Now, what I want to know, I have a bill that is about 100,000, which I'm not going to pay because every month I pay. Now, what I want to know, if you are addressing NWC, what is my course of action? Because I'm not going to pay something that I don't owe.
I am so glad you asked that. Let me go back. Can we rewind? I have gray hair, so I'm talking about tape. Rewind the tape. we spoke about the guaranteed standards and the utility consumer protections that are in place for utility consumers. And one such is that you can demand an investigation. And that investigation will lead to somewhere. If, however, you're not satisfied with the outcome of the investigation, meaning that they say you have to pay it, then you can come to the OUR and we will investigate on your behalf for free. But keep in mind one scenario that I use as an example. Parents went overseas, children in charge of the house, they had a pool party, bill went up like you did, you had that experience. Parents were wondering when they came back, why do I have such a massive bill? It was through the pool party that the money is owed. We can't do anything for you because the water was consumed. It was used by the house, the residents. What OER can do in a situation like that is beg a little time, please. Give them some time to pay. Instead of one lump sum, structure a payment plan. But if a case like that, the water was used and has to be paid for. If it's a case of leaks, then also the reality is that if the leak is on your premises, then you are expected to pay for the water that was leaked, even though you never had it running through your pipes to your shower, your sink, etc. I guess we're already out of time, but
Oh, my apologies. I'm not sure demand and investigation is clear.
oh,
Could you explain to the...
that we have to write. You have to write to the utility and say, please investigate, and you give them the details of the situation. Just like what you had pointed out, my bill is that time, and my bill moved to. You give them the details of your name, your account, the premises number, and a phone contact and email address. If preferably you have the email, you send it through the email.
And if there's no redress, and is there a waiting period for this
Yes,
response from the... You handled it. You heard that. Did you hear the waiting period for you to get redress from the NWC? No, he's telling you what to do now. Demand an investigation.
In writing.
In writing, and he told you the details of what you should put in that request. That's exactly why I asked him.
I shared with everybody that you need to write to the utility.
My apologies.
You have to write to the utility.
Yes, you write to the NWC. But you can talk to him afterwards.
But
So I don't know what to do else. I maybe have to go and get some legal advice on it, because they are saying that I have to pay it, and I keep ignoring it. And I
was just about to ask, have you written to the OUR as yet? Because that's the thing. We're talking about...
You've already been to the utility, but
yes,
you need to...
Remember, we are the appeals body. Most definitely to the OUR, because you're not getting redress from the NWC. All right?
And it's called the appeals process.
Right.
And it's free. OUR does not charge for that.
Do we have brochures on the appeals process today? So I'll hand you a brochure later. The appeals, I'll give you a brochure before we...
They're online.
All right.
But we have to close off because there are other persons who need to share information. So keep in mind that Office of Utilities Regulation, our.org.jm for the website, and at the OUR for the social media channels. And our YouTube page has a lot of informational videos that are broken down into bite-sized bits and pieces for you to easily swallow and go, yum. Learn all you can from our YouTube channel. All you can. Elder? Sister Carolyn? Oh, one quick thing, please. I have my surge protector to plug into the power system. I realized it couldn't fit, but please get yourselves surge protectors, because the OER cannot help you if your equipment is damaged. The law says that the JPS is not liable if your equipment is damaged. Fridge burn up, etc., food spoil, you have to write to them and ask for a claim to be considered. That's how it is under the law. It's a request.
I'm just reminded of a radio program that was aptly suited the name Under the Law. That is kind of dating me right now, but
it's still running.
It's still running. Oh, I haven't heard it in a while. I want to thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you, Ms. Colleen, for being with us here. And I want to remind our members in the audience that whilst it's good that we can have this avenue to reach out and to express ourselves and our concerns, but as a part of stewardship, and what Mr. Brown touched on in the latter part, it's a pity we don't have a lot more time, but the responsibility of the consumer as well is something that we must bear in mind. Not just the responsibility of the OUR, but the responsibility of the consumer in terms of our own conservation methods. Because even though we are in agreement that there are times when there may be some discrepancies with the bills, oftentimes the bills may be accurate, but you just don't realize how it has happened without actually employing some conservation methods. So he mentioned one such thing where you can actually have surge protectors. I know that at the Jamaica Public Service, they have an entire area where they speak about conservation, and they have a whole lot of gadgets, which are pretty neat and nifty. Because there's some things that we do that we don't think about. Persons don't realize that even if a television is not turned on, it still burns electricity. Even if certain things are not turned on, it still burns electricity. And you may be saying that, you know, but I turn off this all day, but it's still plugged in. There is everything that has a light in it burns electricity to get the light. So I see your hand, Nigel, but I can't take your hand, my brother. Everything has a light in it, has there's electricity to burn the light. So we have a responsibility as well as stewards, and this is part of our stewardship outreach, to ensure that we also manage our own utilities. We manage our electricity, we manage our water. We may be here concerned about how the bill is, but we don't take into consideration the fan is plugged in, that is plugged in. We may not necessarily use an air conditioner, but just by having them plugged in. And if you would happen to take a trip one day to the JPS, and they have a whole electrical conservation unit, which has some gadgets, and they can show you how to plug something in, turn something off. Even, for example, your fridge, if you're not using your fridge all night, there's a gadget where the fridge can automatically be switched off, like between 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. And because the fridge is closed, it doesn't defrost. But you save 5 hours of electricity bill. So there are many ways as consumers and as stewards that we can look towards those things. And of course, I know Mr. Brown, Ms. Colleen will be hanging around a bit, so there'll be questions that need to be addressed that we can also have them addressed. But in the meantime, there are other persons who are here and equally willing to share with us. And I'm going to introduce one such person right now, another office that will be sharing with us from the Registrar General's Department. You know, for years I've been saying General Registrar Department. What is Registrar General Department? Mr. McFarling, and he's coming to us. Mr. McFarling, would you have anything to present, PowerPoint or otherwise, that we need to set up? No, that's great. But he'll be coming to present with us, and he has been waiting, so he's ready. No time delay, right, Mr. McFarling? Please come up, and I'll jump right into it. And brothers and sisters, Mr. McFarling.
Thank you very much. Happy Sabbath, everyone. It's good to be here. Just pardon me a little bit. Okay, thank you. Just pardon me a little bit. I drove in from St. Anne this morning. Well, not this morning, a few moments when you called me, I was on my way. So, I am the Registrar General, believe it or not. I'm also a Seventh-day Adventist, believe it or not, right? And I'm here to speak to you about issues, concerns, questions, anything at all you may have about the RGD, right? And I do have a presentation, but it's in the van and it's too formal, right? And I'm here, I'm at church. If I wasn't here today, Sister Wright, I would have been by Rock Hall, sitting down, enjoying some EY program. So, the RGD, what do we do? Well, let me ask this. Anybody in here born in Jamaica? Yeah? Okay, excellent. If you are born in Jamaica, you must interact with the RGD. Once you are born, you know why? Because the RGD is the only place in Jamaica where births are registered. We call them vital events. And the vital events are as follows: a birth, a marriage, a death, an adoption, a stillbirth, and unfortunately a divorce. But the RGD does not process and deal with the divorce. That is the courts. So a lot of persons come to us asking about divorce matters. That is the court. Okay, but all other vital events, they are processed by RGD. Now, those vital events must take place on the island of Jamaica or in its waters, right? So a birth at sea, but once that jurisdiction has been demarcated as Jamaican water, then that person is considered Jamaican and is entitled to be issued with a Jamaican birth certificate. So a lot of persons mix up two things. They mix up the birth registration with the birth certificate. Some of you are married. When you get married and the pastor sign up that register slip, and him normally give the bride, him never give the groom, never yet, right? Him give the bride. Some brides think that is the marriage certificate. No, not the marriage certificate. Some people who, unfortunately may have lost a loved one, and they go to the RGD, and they get the pink slip. You know what I'm talking about? Yes. That is what? So you don't know. That is what is called the burial order. That is the authority to put the body in the ground, or the authority to cremate. But that is not the death certificate. So you can't carry the burial order to Guardian Life or Sagicor and say, see the death certificate here, so make we claim the life insurance money from the deceased. They're going to send you back. Right? So many of us, we mix up the registration document with the actual certificate. Okay? In most cases, the registration of a vital event is either free or it don't cost more than $200 thereabouts. The certificate, though, is the official GOJ, Government of Jamaica, issued document that you must use to conduct business. So, in addition to preparing those certificates, obviously, almost everybody in here, either through your own experience or through a friend or a family member's experience, would have had some issue when you say RGD make some error.
Brother McFarlane, just hold the mic a little bit closer because it's difficult from the back here to hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. So many of us would have some difficulty with the RGD in terms of probably a mistake was made. You know, you get your birth certificate or you get your marriage certificate and your name spelled right. Sorry, your name spelled wrong. Not true. Huh? It's phone fault. I'm joking. It's not phone fault necessarily. But the fact of the matter is, we do recognize that errors can be made. The errors may be errors of, simple errors. They may be errors of fact. So for example, the errors of fact is simple to fix. You were born in Kingston, and the Kingston spelled with a Kingston. We don't have Kingston in Jamaica. It's Kingston. We can fix those easily. But Gayan, that's the first name, right? Gayan. You see what I mean? You see what I mean? Right? Those errors are errors that require evidence to correct. Okay? So we have what is called record updating services that we offer at the RGD. What are the record updating services that we offer? The first one is simply a correction of error. So a record was created, and for whatever reason, the information was incorrect. I'll give you a true example. Every January 1, we find ourselves at some hospital to register the first baby born for the new year. 1 year, Doc, I was at Kingston Public Hospital, and when I met with the first baby, and when I looked at the birth registration, the child's name was TJ Smith, TJ White, right? The letter T, the letter J. That was the first name. And the mother signed to that. So I looked at it and I asked the mummy, I said, Mummy, what's daddy's name? Right? And mummy said, Daddy is Thomas Jeremiah Smith. Thomas White, right? And I said, so the son is really named after the father. She said, yes, it's the same name. So I said, but that's not what you put down. I said, look at what you put down. You put down the letter T and you put down the letter J. Right? And that mother would come back to the RGD and say, RGD messed up. You know what I mean? Right? But that's just one example. Sometimes the RGD mess up for true. And I said, no, I'm being frank. You understand? And I will have to admit that, So the correction of error, that's one thing. Then you have what is called a late entry of name. Because guess what? The only real things you need to register a birth, is the place of birth, the date of birth, and the mother's name. I wonder if you hear me. Let me say it again. The only real thing you need to register a birth legally is the place where the person born, the date when the person born, and the name of the person's mother. What I mean is that you can register a birth legally without a name for the child. Yes. And guess what? It still happens today. Right? Oh, it still happens today. Right? So we have to, down the road, when persons come back, we do a late entry of name. My own father, impression me one, they said, Charlton, I understand, you run RGD, look for my birth certificate, that was the old one, the paper one. Hubert, no father's name, the mother's name, which essentially means he has no surname, right? So we had to enter his surname. So many of us who, well, you're all young people, but we have parents and we have grandparents. Back in the day, it was a real thing. It was almost a customary thing where the registrar at the time just registered the first name, if any at all. So to fix that, we have the late entry of name. Then we have what is called the status. Status. Status now is when we know Jamaica stay already. Unfortunately, some of the women may not be without a shadow of a doubt be able to say that Charlton McFarlane is the father, right? And so they may name the child Jonathan McFarlane. The mother may put her name Rachel Sinclair. I'm giving away real information, but it's not Sinclair name, all right? But the child named Jonathan McFarlane, the mother named Rachel Sinclair. Oh, the child named McFarlane. Where's the McFarlane reference from? There's no father's name on the certificate. You see what I mean? So what we do is allow that the parents to come in and do what is called a status, or if you go on our website, you may see it referred to as an addition of father's particulars. All right? Thankfully, though, I can tell you, since 2007 bedside registration, that has increased significantly. Because in 2010, we were at about 60% of registrations being done with the father's name. Now we're at 80%. Right? And you know, it's amazing. Some things change for very simple reasons. What we realize is that when we go to the hospital, many times the mothers will say, don't do the registration yet. Wait till the father come. Yeah. Because they may want to name the child Jonathan and the father may want to name him Anthony, whatever it is. And so. But guess what? Because the father is there now when registration is being done, his name is added. Just as simple as that. Just as simple as placing ourselves. No, nothing scientific about it, not at all. It was just a matter of convenience. Right? So we offer that as well. And then we do something called re-registration that I want to do away with because I don't see the purpose of that. But it came from the whole bastard children thing when, you know, two people come together before they're married, have a child, and then they get married to each other after the child is born. A re-registration is done to let it seem as if or reflect that the parents are married. I just think it's a lie, and frankly, no bastard not there again, right? Or something to that effect. But it is still there, right? And then the final record updating, which is the real challenge, is what is called the late registration. Now, the late registration, that is the most difficult process because a late registration is in effect that someone was born, but their birth was never ever registered with the RGD. And you have a year to do that. After that year, if you come to the RGD to register that child, and many times it's not child, it's adults. I'm doing late registration now for people who reach retirement age. Okay? It's just the fact. You have to provide some evidence. Because you're born, we don't want to create a secondary ID or a duplicate ID. You know what I mean? Because in a real way, our business is creating identity. A young man called Cliff Hughes one day. I was so upset. Because Cliff Hughes, when the young man said he's waiting how long to get him birth certificate, right? And him daughter born a foreign and him can't visit her because him need a birth certificate for getting passport, him need him passport for getting visa, right? So him stuck. His child will be 2. So the story sounds touching. So we say, so Cliff said, have you ever seen your birth? Him said, no, him not have none. And him go RGD if you try to get one and all, no, him can't get none. And when I get vexed now, in my office, of course, not on the radio, was when Cliff Hughes said, what's happening at the RGD? You know, in that famous voice. What's happening at the RGD? Anyhow, my marketing person reached out to the young man. And the young man came into the RGD. Lo and behold, through interrogation and just talking to him, the young man confessed to us that is not true, is not so it go. He had a birth certificate, he went overseas, was deported, and him uncle tell him, say, just go RGD and tell RGD, say you want a new birth certificate. Right? Of course, you know me call Cliff Hughes same time. Right? Because, and I said to Mr. Hughes, I said, Mr. Hughes, while I pride my agency on being as efficient as it can be, we are not going to cut any corners as it relates to identity. I'm not doing it. Right? Because if we had just run ahead with that person would have had a second identity. Right? And that is illegal. So those are the base services that we offer at RGD. All right? In addition to that, though, you know, persons get married at the RGD. In fact, we do about 8,000 weddings per year at the RGD, and it's at a reasonable cost. I plug in it now, $18,000, so, right? And you get a free marriage certificate in that, a single one, right? So persons do get married at the RGD. We have 10 locations island-wide, and we have what we call RGD Online. So you see, everything that I just mentioned, all of that, you can apply from the comfort of your home. Right? So I'm going to pause now. Right? There's many other things that we do, but I think I've addressed most of the things that are of moment to you, and I'll answer questions now. Go right ahead.
All right, I see a hand in the back. As Jen comes to the mic, I'll ask this one. So from a stewardship standpoint, let's say, for example, my grandmother, my grandfather don't have no birth certificate. Why it bother? Why make sense no go seek one for grandma or grandpa?
Okay, excellent question. Well, one, and I always start by saying this, it may seem the least significant, but in a real way, it is your birth certificate that establishes your identity, right? We at the RGD, we refer to it as the breeder document. And so there's intrinsic value in having your identity established, right? Hence, just from that perspective, it is still important for persons to have their birth certificates. But what about the use cases now for the birth certificates? The fact of the matter is, you may have grandma who at 70 may actually be now eligible to qualify for the social pension system from the government.
Good point.
She need her birth certificate because we now go give her and recognize her because we don't know who she is without the birth certificate. We have grandpa. Grandpa work and retire now. He's now 66 years old. Grandpa have arthritis. Arthritis is that NCD, sir? It's not an NCD. No, I'm going to use a better example. Grandpa have diabetes and hypertension. Right? I worked in health for a little bit. Right? When grandpa got to NHF will ask for his birth certificate. Because guess what? No other document will be able to tell NHF that you reach the threshold age for the JADEP?
Yes.
And stuff like that.
Yes.
So you need it. Grandpa may have some assets, that he wants to sell. For example, because when you retire, your income, your earning kind of drop for most Jamaicans and stuff. You may have assets that you may need to sell. You need a TRN to do business with the government.
Yes.
TRN is going to say, go and get your birth certificate.
Absolutely.
Right? So at every single age,
absolutely.
The simple fact of the matter is, the birth certificate stands as the gatekeeper for over 95% of government services.
Absolutely.
Right? And government services in a large way are welfare services. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Is that, with social benefits and stuff. Hence, we need the birth certificate.
So,
absolutely. Absolutely. And another example, anybody here familiar with the Administrator General's department?
Hear about it.
Oh, wow. Administrator General, if you guys, everybody, make a will. Make a will. Believe you me. It is more, sometimes we hear about will, and it makes us think morbid, it makes us think death. No. Remove that from our minds. And let me tell you why. You are 50, and you have your child. Your child is 16. Child is 16, you are 50. God forbid something happens to you. You die, but you have a house, you have your car, you have money in the bank. But you left no will. That child has died and the term is now intestate. Right? And it is the administrator
what
general.
What that mean?
I don't really know it's a legal term. Right? But what in effect, what it does is that it now requires the administrator general to administer how your property that you have died, how that will be distributed amongst your loved ones. Now, why do you want a third-party government entity to make that kind of decision for you?
All right, there are a few hands up. I don't want to grab them quickly. So, Sister Campbell is at the mic, and then I think Carlin had a question.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am living with
Closer to the mic,
I am living with a situation for over the umpteen years that I am alive.
It's not very low, but just get close as you can.
The umpteen years that I'm alive, I have been living with this. And I take great pride in my name and how it is spelled. I am the only person in my family with over 20 odd copies of original birth paper. And every time I send to the RGD, it comes back with the same error. I went as far as copying the pink slip, sent it in with the application, and it comes back with the same error. And that's my middle name. My middle name is spelled on the pink slip, Deneese. And the 20 odd that I have is Denese. The other day in May, the RGD was in at Nannyville's Health Center. And Maurice went and applied for the original. And to add insult to injury, the original copy was sent. And whoever did the application, my middle name is now spelled Denise. How do I correct that? And at whose
On the mic, Jen. On the mic, Jen.
How do I correct that and at whose expense?
All right, I love that question. And let me start by apologizing for the inconvenience that you have had over the years. The fact is, we do make errors. Couple of things though. Anytime an application is made, right, the customer at that point must put down the information and must review the information and sign to it, right? That's number one. After that is done, we then go to our records, original records and stuff, and we look and see if it matches. If there's no match, then we go with what is on the original record. Now, the fact of the matter is that error should not be persisting over the years, because I'm going to bet that in your passport, it is correct. Am I right? Yeah, and you can't get your passport without your birth certificate. Am I right? Exactly. And probably on your driver's license, it is correct. Maybe on your voter's ID, it is correct, right? So you have all the evidence. What I'm going to do, I'm going to invite you. If it's easier for you to, contact us, you can contact us via the web chat, via a WhatsApp message, or when you do have the time, visit us downtown. You're going to ask for Pat Jackson, because we do have error. Pat Jackson, that's the manager down there. Exactly. Pat Jackson. Her name is Patricia Jackson. I call her Pat for short, right? And stuff. Because the sad thing is some errors tend to persist, right? And for no valid reason. And we really need to get those systems fixed. Right? So without knowing the details, I'm not looking at the record, I'm not looking at the file and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is that from how I know the system works, and you have all those supporting documents, it should be really, really simple and straightforward to have that correction done.
Amen. Caroline had a question.
Okay, so I have two questions here. The first one is, normally we register the will at your department. Say, for example, the question says, say, for example, my grandmother died, made a will, and it was registered. How do I view that will, seeing that we cannot find the original copy? And we paid for express service, and we paid for 3 days express service, and we weren't given the document within 3 days. Can we apply for refund?
Thank you very much. Yes. So thanks for those questions. Let me just go in the order you asked them. Once the will is registered at the RGD, then individuals can come in and do a search of that will, right? Chances are, now when we register or record the will, it's record and batch with a folio and a LIBOR number. That number, though, is normally known by the person who registered the will. So it is quite likely that the grandmother may have registered the will but did not provide those numbers. But that's not a problem. These individuals now can come in and ask for a search to be done, right? And once the search is done and that recorded will is located, they can then ask to view the contents thereof, right? So that's not a major challenge per se in that regard. Give us the name, right? And there are some other things, because of course we would take, date of birth and, other information that we can triangulate to match to say this is the person. Okay? That's number one. I'm coming, sir, and I'm coming as well. The second question now about paying for express service. The RGD has several service times now. We have a same-day service, but that same-day service is just for the head office. And the simple reason is that all printing of certificates is done at the head office. So we could reasonably print a certificate in Kingston and send it to Savlama office on the same day. It's not going to happen. So we have a next day service for those customers. And then we have express and 7 to 10 days and stuff. The fact of the matter is, when I look at the numbers, over 90% of those applications are satisfied. But there will be some customers whose application is just not satisfied within that service time, right? And while we apologize for that and we aim for perfection, we do recognize that not all customers will be satisfied within the service time. And for persons who are not satisfied within the service time, they can apply for the refund, right? And we provide the refund. So this is how we do it. When you apply for a 3-day service, on day 5, if you come and it is not ready, right? No, on day 3, if you come and it is not ready, and we say, all right, you have to come back probably 2 days later. When you come back 2 days later, what happens is that the service that you will be charged for moves from the express to the 7-day, and you get the difference in that, right? So the refund is there, and you can even apply for your refund online, right? So we try to make it easy, but in a real way, we don't want to keep anyone's money for any service that we did not provide, and so we do issue refunds.
There was a hand, Owen, and I will, we're gonna have to wrap up soon as well.
Sure, no problem.
Yes. As you mentioned about the will, in time and age now, we realize that children and relatives have been killing relative to really collecting the wills.
Get closer to the mic, please, Owen. Or take it down and bring it
Yes.
closer.
I'm saying that in this time of age we're living in, and to make a will where we know that children are so family try to take we away before the time. I wonder how you dress for we to make will and keep it so secretly.
That's a good question. The truth is, some parts of that question I can't answer. You know what I mean? So I can't honestly speak authoritatively on the motives behind what someone will do, you know, even if it means, you know, committing an offense. What I will say, though, is that what we encourage persons to do is to make their will and to register their will. And let me tell you why. Because some persons may make a will and keep the will, and then if, God forbid, through some nefarious act, that person is prematurely cut off, right? I'm speaking frankly. Let us say that person is killed by some, you know, close person or stuff. What you may find is that that person may go now and access that will and try to amend that will to let it reflect like something was passed down where it should not have been passed down. How do you protect against that? You protect against that by when the will is made and signed, you take it to the RGD and you register it. Because when that will is made now and it is registered at the RGD, right? Any executor who is going to action those last will and desires of that individual who is now dead will ask if a copy exists at the RGD. So if they get the copy at the RGD and the copy at the RGD said that I will my house to my son, but the copy that some relative have say I will my house to my nephew, right? Then there's a discrepancy, and unless the will that is in the possession of the family member is now a more recent will, right? The fact of the matter is, if the will is dated at the same time, the executor by law is going to rely on what was recorded by the RGD. And that is why it is important. That in and of itself is the fundamental benefit of recording your will. Because when you record it, what you are saying in a real way is RGD, this is my document that I'm giving to you for safekeeping. Keep it safe until I need it.
Is there a charge for that, to leave your will at the RGD?
Yes, there's a charge to record it.
Okay.
And of course, there's a charge for storage, and the CEO has to get paid.
How much is that charge?
The charge for recording is not a fixed charge. It is based on sheetage, right? And it's $500 per sheet. Okay. So if you do a will and the will has 10 pages, then you know it's 10 times $500.
Fair enough.
If you do a will and it's 2 page, it's 2 times.
And if it's
500.
half page, just
Yeah.
kidding.
And if it's half page, it's 1 sheet.
All right. We may have to move on pretty soon. If there are any questions, I see a hand, my brother, have to come real quick because we're kind of running over time. Yes.
Yes, thank you. So with what you say about the will being made, it suggests that it can be adjusted at a future time. So what's the adjustment process, like cost involved, stuff like that?
All right, so let's be very clear. The RGD, we don't draft wills, we don't make wills, right? The only service we offer is to record the wills. Now, the fact of the matter is, my brother, is that you may make a will today, right? And next year, you are now the owner of a second house, and you want to will that house or to include that second house, that newly acquired asset. You know, you want to include it in your will. There's no legal impediment for you to go and change and adjust your will. All you need is to get the proper legal advice and have it executed accordingly. What we recommend after that is that you take the updated will and have it recorded, because in a real way, an updated will is a new will. You follow what I'm saying? It is, in fact, a new will, right? And we treat it as such, and we note on the previously recorded will that an updated will has now been recorded with the agency. And the charge is the same in terms of what we charge for sheetage and so on. Because you probably have more assets, you probably add a couple more sheets, so it's probably a little bit more expensive. But outside of that, nothing major.
The amendment to the will is called a codicil, C-O-D-I-C-I-L. But as you rightly say, instead of doing a codicil, it's better to just do over the will.
And have it recorded. All right? That's it?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
you
we-
guys treat me better than Padmore. Yes.
As it
Taylor,
relates
it's a
to
compliment.
deed poll, how is that dealt with?
All right. So the deed.
And there's a cost on what the costing is like associated with it.
Yes. All right. Good question. Deed poll. A deed poll is literally a document that changes your name. It can be as simple from changing a letter in your name to changing your first, middle, and last name. However, you know, it can be from one extreme to the next, where it's a change of name. At the RGD, when persons come to the RGD and request a deed poll, what we tend to do is to assess the nature of the change to the name that you want. Because you remember those products we talked about earlier, correction of error, late entry of name, some of those services can actually do what you want the deed poll to do, right? So we recommend that first if the deed poll is not necessary. And I'll tell you why. However, let's just finish with the deed poll thing. No, when anybody can draft a deed poll. You don't need a lawyer, you just need anybody who, you know, have smart enough. Many persons go to a JP, many persons just download something online. You draft that deed poll. You have it notarized or stamped by a JP. However, while you don't have to come to the RGD to draft your deed poll, and by the way, we do offer drafting service at the RGD if you want that. I'm coming. In order for the deed poll to be legally binding, you must have it recorded with the RGD. So a drafted deed poll is not a legal deed poll until you take it to the RGD and it is recorded and officially stamped. Then it becomes a legal deed of name change. Now, many persons, I really have to explain this because people ask it all the time. Many persons believe that when a deed poll is done, your birth certificate information changes. No, it doesn't happen because your birth information does not change. If you were born John Campbell and you change your name from John Campbell to Joseph Campbell, you are still born John Campbell, right? And so the deed poll has to be paired with the birth certificate. And therein lies one of the weaknesses now, and that is why we try to minimize the deed poll thing, because in a real way, because you have to pair it with your birth certificate, then technically, if you want to keep up some little trickery and stuff like that, when you're ready, you can walk with your birth certificate alone, and when you're ready, you can walk with the deed poll and the birth certificate. What we do at the RGD, right, is internally make an explicit link to say that this birth certificate is linked to a deed poll, right? So when you go embassy and stuff, embassy will contact us electronically and we verify that the deed poll was done. But many places don't have that type of sophisticated checks, you understand? And so there is where the gap is, all right? So we really recommend that, listen, if some other apparatus can be used to have whatever adjustment in your name done, and it's reflected on the birth certificate, that is what we encourage. If it can't be accommodated, then you do the deed poll.
You're done? Or is a question? A whole day. I know. You had a question? No, I don't know if I missed, if he made a distinction between the correction of errors and the deed poll, because sometimes it gets confused. It happened to me with my dad. So I wanted to know if there's some major distinction to identify which is which.
So in a real way, the distinction is not one that we necessarily expect the customer to see. You know what I mean? And that's why we encourage the customers to come in. You know, because, for example, somebody may be born Joseph Smith, and they say, no, my father never named Smith, he named Campbell. But we have no evidence that your father's name is Campbell, with no evidence at all. And guess what? Joseph Smith is a full and complete registration. We have no evidence on which to change that Joseph Smith to Joseph Campbell, right? So a deed poll is perhaps the route that you have to take, right? And such a deed poll, funny enough, we actually refer those matters to the court, because when you change the surname, it now becomes a paternity link, right? And courts tend to issue paternity orders and stuff like that, because of course the whole issue of passing it. Traditionally, wealth is linked to the father, you know, even when he don't have nothing, you know what I mean? Right? So it's passed down like that. But as I say, what we try to do is to look at it, and once the error or the substance of what you want corrected can be done via one of our record updating activities, that is what we do.
I'm so grateful to you. I've always wanted to meet the person who signed on my birth certificate. I'm happy I'm able to see you. And I know on behalf of all the members here at Sandy Park, we're more delighted to know that he's a Seventh-day Adventist, and we can always, as stewards, go to him, ask him questions. I'm seeing the hand, but we have 2 presenters online, and we must take those presenters because they have been logged on.
Talk to him after tea. Talk to him after, please.
They have been waiting. I have 2 presentations. I want to thank you. I want to thank you so much, because you could be elsewhere. You told us that. You could be elsewhere at their AY program, but you took the time out to make it a very informative, record-keeping information and the service you provide at RGD. Thank you so much. And we just have a little token to give to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anytime. All right. I know I'll give you a week next time to present, not a few minutes. I'll just now call Mr. Brown from the OUR to come. Mr. Brown.
Yeah, Mr. Gordon, come on up, come on up. And Miss Colleen is seated right here.
Yes. oftentimes we don't remember as stewards to say thank you, but we don't want ever to forget your presentation, the fact that you told us about the appeal process, and oftentimes don't just say things, but write it down.
Amen.
We'll definitely remember that, and also we'll have a surge protector. You may not need a surge protector for this, but cheers and thank you so much.
Amen.
All right. Online, we have waiting Miss
You have
Andreen.
Miss Colleen. Miss Colleen is here with us.
Oh, yes, Miss Colleen, come on up. Yes. For being a great support to your colleague, we just want to thank you so much, and we appreciate you coming along. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks. Oh, he wanted photos, but we'll do it. So online, we have Miss Andreen Pinnock. We cannot leave those persons who have a disability because we need to know how best we can help our family members who might just have a disability. This is so important because this is the age that everybody gets able to do so many things. And I'm hoping that Miss Pinnock is willing and ready and able to go with her presentation, and for the technical team for her to share her screen. Miss Pinnock?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Is there any way we could see her being projected on the screen?
I would first have to get the privilege to share. Okay, I can. And I'm sharing.
Your audio is very good. We're just waiting on your visual.
You should be seeing my you should be seeing me fumbling around trying to get it into slideshow. You're not seeing that?
We're seeing you now.
You were seeing you now. And I must say, Miss Pinnock too is a Seventh-day Adventist. So it's good to know our fellow stewards who are Seventh-day Adventists. And she is from the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities, and they are on Ripon Road, near to Crossroads there, that road. But she'll tell you more. Over to you, Miss Pinnock.
Good evening. I think the Sabbath hours are ending where I am, but I'm not sure if you're still on Sabbath hours. If you are, a happy Sabbath to you all. And I come to share with you about, I was invited to share on the services of the council, but I think I want to take the approach of the presenter before, just to bring to focus how as a church, we can ensure that we are in compliance with the legislation, and in some instances where we are able to point persons to the organization. So I work with the government entity titled the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities. When the enactment of the Disabilities Act took place, this organization was named as a body corporate, which would mean we are a public body. We can be sued and we can sue people. The legislation gives us a wide mandate, and I'll try my best to engage you and take you through what we have to offer. First, I would love for us to, I'm so sorry I wasn't able to be there in person for you to do some activities, but anybody is familiar with who are people with disabilities?
Persons who have less than, what should I say, less than full abilities. That's probably the best succinct term.
Well, I am grateful for your attempt, but I would love to engage you to find out what do you mean. But before I go that way, anybody else has a definition they would love to share? No, remember, I am not seeing you. So when you don't respond, we have a lot of dead air and we are live on air. So don't all run for the mic. Don't all put up your hand, but it's okay to try. Anybody else?
Yes. So a person with a disability is someone who is challenged, maybe, for example, whilst I'm able to see you clearly, someone who has a myopia or has to wear glasses might have a disability visually, or someone who is not able to hear you will be having a disability with the hearing, maybe be hearing impaired, or if someone doesn't have all their limbs, they might have a disability when it comes on to their mobility.
All right, thank you for your efforts. But here is what the legislation defines people with disabilities as. A person with a disability is anyone who has a long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairment, which may hinder his or her full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. Ms. Pinnock, what does that mean? What does that really mean? It is talking about those permanent impairments that may manifest themselves. So you know, persons who are amputated or persons who have a deformed limb, person who use a wheelchair, persons who may walk with crutches, but these are permanent manifested impairments. Jamaica categorizes these persons as people with disability, but the group is wider. Do you see their mental? So we're looking at those persons who have mental illness, chronic depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, personality disorder. A lot of us label ourselves sometimes because we have some traits, but we don't understand the genesis of them. Persons who have OCD, ADHD, all of those things are linked to mental impairments. And in Jamaica, if you are diagnosed with any of these, you can be registered as an individual with a disability. Intellectual disability and mental illness are two different conditions. Intellectual disability looks at your IQ level and it measures cognitive reasoning from the IQ angle of things, and persons who are unable to perform, I would want to use a simple language now, passing the grade 4 level. Those persons can be identified in the intellectual group. They are different from slow learners. They are different from late bloomers. Intellectual disability is that condition that is only diagnosed through a psychoeducational assessment. And as our friends shared earlier, the sensory impairment, you have persons who are deaf, meaning they can't hear anything at all. You have some persons who are hard of hearing, which they will have some type of hearing. And then you have persons who are blind, can't see anything at all. And you have others who have a visual impairment, which is slightly different. I'm not a doctor, so I won't even attempt to tell you the difference, but there's a difference between those whose tested glasses restores their vision to 20/20 from those who have visual impairment, even if they wear, because you have some persons with visual impairment that wear tested glasses, and then those with low vision. So in Jamaica, this is the category of individuals who can be considered as persons with disabilities. In other territory, the categories are wider. I see a hand and I'm going to allow the person to ask their question. Carolyn, hand is raised.
Okay, thank you so much. I heard you said that they can be registered. I don't want to jump the gun, but I just wanted to know, how do you go about registering someone who has a disability?
I was getting there soon. So in Jamaica, the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disability hosts what is called the National Registry for Persons with Disabilities. We are the authority body by the legislation, the Disabilities Act, that has the responsibility to document who are people with disabilities in Jamaica. This is the definition we use, the definition you see shared on screen, the one I just read. That is what is used to categorize people who have a disability. Now, if you identify yourself in this group and you are interested to be named, to be counted as an individual with a disability, you can choose now to be registered through the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities. You would notice the choice of English words I use, and they are deliberate. Registration, unlike the RGD, registering as a person with a disability is a voluntary act. You can choose to be admitted to the registry and you can choose not to. We encourage you to be registered, but you are not mandated to do so. How do I register matter when I identify that I have a disability, the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities hosts some prescribed forms, meaning we have to give you the documents you need to complete that will determine your registration. 2 documents are required. One is a medical form, depending on the nature of impairment that you have. A medical form is administered, and a doctor in most disability cases will verify that the disability exists. All disabilities excepting intellectual disability can be verified by one medical practitioner. The intellectual disability group, those children who you will see attending the Randolph Lopez School of Hope, you might be familiar with it up in the Papine area. Those children, those type of children, they are categorized in the intellectual disability group. Some of them, their disability has to be verified by a psychoeducational assessor. All the other disabilities a medical practitioner can verify. When you would have completed your verification of disability and a disability is identified, you complete an application form that gives us some information about who you are, where you live, your next of kin, how we can make contact with you, and we require a passport size photograph and a birth certificate. If you have other identification information, locally recognized identification information, you can also bring them, but you at least need to have a birth certificate to also complete the registration process. So without your birth certificate, you will not be able to complete your registration with the JCPD. When the NIDS come on board, it will replace the other identification that we use, like our TRN and our voters ID and those other identification. But in the interim, those 2 are accepted and encouraged to be taken to the office, but you at least need a birth certificate. So the birth certificate is the staple for registration. The legislation, and I keep referring to the legislation because now people with disabilities are no longer asking Jamaicans to protect their rights, asking Jamaicans to be responsible. There is a law. You can be charged if it is that you find yourself causing any acts of discrimination against people with disabilities. And here is where I want to level with my church. As an institution, we can find ourselves in breach of the law if we don't become knowledgeable about how we can include persons with disabilities in our worship, in our ministries. And people with disabilities is not just a welfare program. It is not just a special day. We need to look at our church's infrastructure. Can someone using a wheelchair use my church bathroom? Can someone using a wheelchair come up in my sanctuary? Can someone using a wheelchair actively participate in worship? What if one Sabbath your preacher is someone who uses a wheelchair? Can that person participate in worship? What if a mother from the church has a child with autism? Do you have the adequate facilities that when the child requires a break, the breaks can be given? There's a soft room. We are mindful and sensitive with our language. You know, sometimes because we don't know, and I want you, some disabilities like autism. If you are familiar with children who are autistic, you would notice that they don't keep steady for very long. They will make loud noises. They would want to be on the outside. And guess what we say? In Rudy, why she carry him? In Disruptive, why she carrying come at church? And you know, want to sit down in a church, you know, want to learn. Those are sometimes the expressions that we make. Most times I would want to say, because we are not aware, but I would want to encourage us to get on board and be aware that we are more accommodative, because our mission is to evangelize the world, and people with disabilities form a part of the world. But in Jamaica, they have legislated our responsibility to ensure that we are leaving no one behind. So when we're printing, I notice my church have programs Sabbath School quarterlies, printed in large print. And a lot of us think it's just for the old people. But you have some young people who have visual impairment where the large print may be beneficial to them. Our church has the quarterlies in the audio format because you have some persons who are blind who may need braille copies or may need the audio copy to be able to participate in worship. When we are doing our presentations like these, you are inclusive. So there's an interpreter. If it is that we want to reach the deaf community, we have started that deaf church in Portmore, but deaf people don't only live in St. Catherine. Some of them live in the Papine area too, and they can be members of our church. And we have to be mindful that we are creating an environment that they all can be included and participate. So it's not just Possibilities Day where we bring in some people with disabilities and we clap them for staying alive and for looking like they are living, and we thank God that they are living. It's far greater responsibility than that. We are called to be more aware, more sensitive, more informed, and more inclusive to ensure that everyone is participating. So the young man in church who sits in a wheelchair, who has the ability to serve as an elder, should be given such an opportunity if he so desires, but should never be barred because he can't come to board meeting because in wheelchair can't hold in the vestry. That should not be our excuse. So JCPD is designed predominantly because we were an department before the passing of the legislation, before the enactment of the legislation. We were a small unit in government. When the legislation was enacted in February 14, 2022, just last year, we were established as a larger body corporate where we have more staff. So our programs and our services are becoming wider. First, we had a very small rehabilitation program where we would offer some rehab services. We are expanding these services to ensure that we are better serving Jamaicans. And what we had in place was the educational opportunities where we'll provide grants, one-time grants to support people and support persons with disabilities going to any levels of schooling. There was the income tax exemption. This is one that I would want to just pause. I'm going pretty quickly because I'm not seeing any indication of time, but I'm sure my time will be up soon. But the income tax exemption is one that most times it is misunderstood. Income tax exemption is only applicable to persons with disabilities who are contributing income tax, and because of the nature of your disability, you would have an expense that without the disability you would not have. For example, you wear a hearing aid, which is an expense. You would have to service that hearing aid, change that hearing aid every now and then. You wear a prosthesis, you use a wheelchair, you have to be chauffeur driven. Those type of expenses due to the disability, you can apply to be considered to be exempted from income tax. It is not an automatic exemption because you have a disability. It is a consideration by the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Labor and Social Security to exempt the individual from paying income tax, only income tax, not GCT, not customs waiver, just income tax. I see a hand. You can go ahead.
Thanks for acknowledging. I just wanted to know, how do you apply to be exempted? I don't know if I missed something.
No, you have not missed it. Once you are registered with the council, these services become available to you as an individual, and each of the services I described or will be describing has their own application process. So if you want to be exempted from income tax, there's an application form that you will have to make that requires an assessment to be done of your disability, and then it goes through a process of review and a decision is made to consider the exemption or not to consider the exemption. If you are not exempted and you believe that that exemption was unfairly withheld from you, there is an appeals process. We facilitate a relationship through an MOU with the National Housing Trust. Persons with disabilities who are contributing to the trust and you want to benefit from any of the services of the National Housing Trust, they will send you to the JCPD for a letter of verification. And from that verification, different benefits can be administered to you. And here is where I want to explain this one too. You first have to be registered for the benefit through the National Housing Trust to be administered. Then the second step is when you go to the National Housing Trust, the particular service that you want, you would first have to qualify for it and then they apply the benefit. So there is one benefit called the 5% housing becoming accessible, and those are NHT housing solutions. Once there are NHT housing solutions available, you have made an application, you meaning a person with a disability, you are accepted for this solution that you're applying for, they administer a benefit to you once you take in your verification letter that you're an individual with a disability. Those are only provided at the council. There is also a retrofitting grant given to persons with disabilities who are homeowners, and you would want to retrofit your home space to ensure that it's accessible to you and your other visitors. You can also get that grant through your verification of registration and disability from the council. So those are some benefits we have. I don't describe to you a perfect system, but I describe to you a refining system that legislation backs. So even if you have encountered the services of council before and it was not the best, there is much left to be desired. I can tell you, you are living in the day of hope because of the enactment of the legislation, the organization has to do better because we can be sued. The government can be sued. The last benefit I would want to describe to you is what we call the income generating benefit. The income generating benefit has two tiers. It was $30,000 for a small business, just to support a small business, and $150,000 for a not so smaller business. We know that these sums are insufficient and they may be reviewed in the short term so that they match what is happening in daily life. But you might want to ask why it is that you have two small incomes. You do have persons with disabilities who they live alone. They require these income generating opportunities to sustain their lives, but they are unable to manage large sums of money all at once. So we have to create services that will be able to match their needs. So that's why there were two tiers created. These two have their own application process, but they only become available once you are registered with the council. You can't get both, I should say. You can't get both. I see another hand. You may go ahead.
I have a quick question. I see the benefits and the assistance that you have in place for persons with disabilities. Is there a segment of your organization that actively seeks to assist persons, disabled persons, with some amount of employment? That's one. And for persons who are seeking tax exemption or early retirement, is there another segment of your organization that assists with that?
No, man. Remember, we shared about tax exemption already. So tax exemption is one process. We don't have a pension structure with our entity. That is through the National Insurance Scheme, where if your disability deems you unemployable, so say you have acquired a disability and you are no longer able to work, you can apply for the invalidity pension. But that is when you get to a state of being unemployable. And there's a whole big discussion around disabilities. And I would hope that the church makes space for us to delve in it a little bit deeper, because sometimes a disability is acquired and what is needed is for the person to be redeployed, like to be sent to a different part of the organization instead of being sent home to go and mope about your condition. But if it is that your disability deems you unemployable, unemployable, you cannot work ever again, you can apply for what is called the invalidity pension through the National Insurance Scheme. We call it NIS. That is where you can make that application. Income tax exemption, you are employed, contributing income tax or paying income tax. Through the council, you make an application for consideration. If it is that you are denied and you feel that that denial is unjust, you can appeal the decisions of the approving bodies for them to reconsider your application. So there are two separate things. I think I addressed that one. For employment, we no longer do job placement, but the JCPD, the organization to whom I'm representing, they are currently recruiting staff. So if you pay attention to our website and you match any of the skill sets we are advertising, you can come and join the team and grant your services in that way. If not, through the Heart Trust NSDA, they are the government entity that deals with employment right across the island. So you can go there for employment, but the JCPD is recruiting staff and you can seek to be a part of the team. We are the new history makers as we walk the path of the enactment of the Disabilities Act. So that's for those two questions. Was I able to answer your concerns?
Yeah, I think you answered the concern. It's almost if you're suggesting that person would just come to your office and or go on the website and see if they match anything for the employment aspect. And persons can also turn their attention to the Heart Trust in order to address that. There's an individual who I know, a person who is trying to go through your organization along with the Ministry of Labor to try to acquire early retirement. And I think some of the paperwork has been repeatedly said by the Ministry of Labor to be held up at your organization. So I guess that's a discussion for another time.
No, you're misunderstanding. The JCPD is a part or was a part of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, but early retirement or retirement on basis of disability is a service provided through the NIS. The JCPD has never carried such a service. The JCPD carries the process of income tax exemption. We are just the secretariat, so we package the applications and send them off for review. But the process of early retirement services of the government is only processed through either the Accountant General's Department, if you are a civil servant, or if you are not a civil servant, it's through the National Insurance Scheme. So they are two separate things. So they are not with the JCPD. If it is income tax exemption, the JCPD is the secretariat. We are not even the approving body. We are just the secretariat.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pinnock. There's a hand in the sanctuary.
You can go ahead.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Pinnock, for your presentation thus far. It has been very informative. And no, I'm not disabled, but I would, of course, like to equip myself so that if someone is in need, I'm able to offer relevant information. Now, you would have mentioned in relation to someone who has become, disabled and can't work. Correct me if I miss anything, but you're saying that there's a pension scheme that they can access, and if that is the case, I'm asking, pension scheme usually comes after a certain time, age, or what's the qualification? Is there any age limit? All of these kind of things, if you may. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not the authority body on this particular thing, but here's some information that I have. The pension is called the invalidity pension. So you would have been employed and contributing to the NIS. You are contributing, because if you are a casual laborer who don't have any labor documentations, meaning you just get your salary in hand and you go home, you don't pay any of the statutory deductions, I don't believe this service will apply to you. So those who are in formal type employment and are contributing to the NIS scheme, and for some reason, not for some reason, you acquired a disability and you are now deemed unemployable, you can never work again. Through the NIS, you can make an application for what is called invalidity pension. And then they will administer to you a pension. Even if you are not yet at the pension age, you will get the pension on the basis of your disability, and the disability deems you unemployable. If it is that you, for some years down the line, regain strength and is able to work again, then the pension will desist and you will start getting a salary. But there is an invalidity pension, but it's most times administered to those persons who are deemed unemployable due to their disability. But that is from the NIS, a department of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pinnock. I know that time is against us. I am affording you 2 minutes just to wrap up. I've been sending some signals to you, but I see that you're not.
I can't see you at all.
Yes, I realize. So if you could be so kind enough just to wrap up and in 2 minutes. Thank you so much.
Sure, I will be. What I want to encourage us is that the website exists for the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities. We, the entity, is on a very aggressive campaign now, starting soon, to bring some awareness to Jamaica. And as a member of the Adventist Church, we have made some steps in the right direction, and I want to encourage us to continue, but view people with disabilities first as people, view them with a place and a right to be here. And once we start to rewire our minds in that way, then inclusion and access will become easier for all of us. I thank you for giving me this opportunity. And as a member of the church, I am open to supporting us on that side, but I really do encourage us in our spaces of work, wherever we have influence and presence, carry the conversation about disability and its awareness, encouraging everybody to see people first, their disabilities thereafter, that all of us can really and truly live in Jamaica, raise our families, and do business. I thank you. And on screen, you should be seeing our contact credentials so you can continue to liaison with us.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pinnock. We here at Sandy Park, as stewards, we understand what it is to be included. So we understand the mantra that your organization is thrusting out there now, and the theme of inclusivity. Now we're going to ask Ms. Smith from the National Housing Trust. Ms. Smith, as per our communication, we're asking you to go right ahead and be within your time limit. Thank you so much, Ms. Smith.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting the NHT to speak with your staff. And I'll just be brief as I can. We'll be talking about home ownership and how the NHT can assist you as you explore the various options available to you. 1 minute, please. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so I have a presentation that I would love to share with you, if I would be allowed to. I'm not seeing that option on my screen. I don't know why. Am I co-host? Can I share my screen? Yes, thank you so much. Okay, beautiful. All right, so the National Housing Trust mandate is to provide affordable housing for all our contributors. It is our aim, it is our desire that every Jamaican becomes a homeowner. And so what we do, we have programs or financing options that are available. and more importantly, enablers that are available to assist you, because we do understand the challenges that are faced by many Jamaicans as it relates to home ownership. It could be that you've inherited property from family members, but there are no titles available, or there's a parent title, but your grandmother didn't take the time to splinter the title so that she could, under the law, adequately dispose of or gift you your portion of the property. So you know it's from the mango tree to the apple tree, but you have no title for your portion. It could be that you want to purchase land, and the NHE can assist you with that because you want to build your own home. And of course, there's the NHE scheme solutions and also the option of purchasing a house on the open market. So those are your options. Okay, so while we increase the housing stock, we are going to just tell you why it is so important to be a contributor to the NHE, because it allows you to borrow monies for housing projects at a very low interest rate. So all your contributions that are paid over to the NHT goes towards this fund. So you're part of the trust and you benefit from several of our products and services at the NHT. Okay, so how do you qualify for a benefit from the NHT? You must be between the ages of 18 to 70 years old. You must be a current contributor to the NHT, whether in the capacity of an employed or self-employed or voluntary contributor. So it could be that you run your own business, you are a shopkeeper, you do dressmaking, tailoring, you're self-employed. Under the law, once you're in any income engaging activity, you are supposed to pay the relevant statutory taxes and, of course, contributions to the NHT. If you are overseas, you're a citizen or a resident of another country and wish to access a benefit through the NHE to purchase land or to purchase a home, you would be contributing as a voluntary contributor. So there are many times there are persons here who co-apply with a relative that is overseas, okay, so that they can access additional funding for purchasing or building a property. You must be earning at least the minimum wage. So whenever the minimum wage moves, that's where we move. So currently it is at $13,000 per week. So you must be earning at least the minimum wage.
Sorry, Miss Smith. Miss Smith.
Yes?
Are you hearing me clearly?
I am hearing you clearly. Are you not hearing me clearly?
Your audio goes in and out. I'm not sure if you could come a little closer to your audio, the microphone on your device.
Are you hearing me clearly now?
Come a little closer. A little closer. Do an audio check.
Are you hearing me?
It comes across a little more audible. Could you do that again for me? Come a little closer.
Check one.
All right, so let's go from overseas. If you're overseas.
Okay, sorry about that. So if you're overseas, you are a resident of another country, you can contribute to the NHT as a voluntary contributor, and you will be able to access your benefit. And I also spoke of being self-employed. Whatever income generating legal activity that you do, you are supposed to be paying all the relevant taxes, including your contribution to the NHT. And again, as I said, in addition to be between the ages of 18 and 70 years, you must be earning at least the minimum wage, okay? And you must be a contributor to the NHT for at least 52 weeks. Clear? You're hearing me quite well? Okay.
You said it so clearly at 52 weeks and then you went out.
I'm not sure what's happening.
Yes, I'm hearing you. If you position your body just like that. Yes.
Okay, good.
Let's try that. Thank you so much.
Good. So, so you get the qualifying requirements. Let's move into what you can access through the NHT. Am I still clear?
Yes, you are.
All right. So The NHT will lend non-homeowners up to $7.5 million, okay? So a single applicant can access up to $7.5 million to purchase a home or access these funds in part to buy land and a difference to purchase, to do construction. If you are a single applicant and you have identified a property that costs 12 million or less, the NHT will allow you to borrow $8.5 million. Okay, that's single applicants only. You can also co-apply with someone else and access up to $15 million. That's 7.5 million times 2. You can also apply with 2 other persons under our 3 co-applicant policy. And under this policy though, you must be related by blood, birth, or marriage. If you are not related, you cannot show kinship ties, then you cannot apply with 2 other persons. You have to apply as a single or a double applicant. $21 million is allotted under the 3 co-applicant policy. Interest rates. Now, interest rates range from 0 to 5%, very competitive. If you make contact with any bank or any other financial institution for a loan, you're not going to be getting those loans at these low interest rates. Our interest rates range from 0 to 5. So between minimum wage and $30,099 per week, you do not pay an interest on the loan that you're borrowing. Over 30,000 to 42,000, 2%. 42,000 to 100, 4%. And over $100,001, 5%. That is what is allotted. And bear in mind that I am quoting your weekly gross income. Okay? Am I clear? Can you still hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you. There's a question in the audience by me. I just wanted to know, I'm hearing everybody saying that you can have an account on your NHT website and you can print your eligibility letter. I'm not sure if your presentation will address that or if you could answer it at...
I can answer it now.
Thank you.
So in recent times, we have made improvements to our online platform so persons can get their pre-approval letters online. So you have to go online.nht.gov.jm, register, and once you have your profile, your username and password, you can go in, print your eligibility letter, check on contributions. There are persons who would call from time to time to find out if their companies are in fact paying over contributions on their behalf. You can do so. If you have a mortgage, you can check on your mortgage disbursements if you're getting construction loans. So it's a pretty good idea to go online and register. If it is that you go online and when you upload your eligibility letter, you feel that the information is incorrect, it could be that they are missing years of contributions, or based on the income that is on the system, it is saying that you can afford, say, 5 million as opposed to the maximum of 7.5 million. Then you would query to find out where the discrepancy is. Come in, we will do the letter for you manually. Okay, but where there is no discrepancy, go ahead, upload and email your eligibility letter. Your eligibility letter is like your passport, because the minute that you are ready to buy a house, one of the first questions you're going to be asked is, how are you going to finance the purchase? So if it is that you've indicated to the seller, I'm going to be using the NHT to assist me, the seller's attorney needs to see proof that you are in fact qualified for a loan from the NHT, and is your eligibility letter that will prove that. The eligibility letter is valid for 6 months. Okay, you can have that for 6 months. The realtor will need it, the vendor's attorney will need it, and if it is that based on the price point of the house that you're looking to buy, 7.5 million would not be sufficient and you're going to be needing additional financing from an institution. You need to be shopping around to find out what are those rules that govern VMBS, JMMB, NCB, and find out, how much money you'll be able to get in addition to the NHT 7.5 billion. And on that note, I want to also indicate the EFMP program that the NHT recently launched. Now, for persons who are looking to purchase a home and your weekly gross income exceeds $30,000 per week, you are going to be directed to one of our EFMP partners. So currently, we have 7 who have signed. I'm going to try and remember who they are. They're COK Sodality, NCD, Bank of Nova Scotia, Victoria Mutual, JMMB, Jamaica National, and First Global Bank. If it is that you go to any of these institutions and for any reason, probably you have a poor credit score, or you are unable to meet their qualifying criteria, and you say to the NHE, hey, I went for an eligibility letter, I'm not able to get the additional financing, then we will process your loan as long as you meet, of course, our eligibility criteria as well. Because for any loan that you're getting, there are 2 things we're going to be looking at: your income and your age. Your ability to repay the loan is going to be important, even if you're coming to the NHT. Okay? So
yes. Yes, Ms. Smith. We're so thankful for that. There's a question in the. You have to come to the mic.
Good evening. If you identify a property, do you have to pay down on the property before housing trust can assist you?
Okay, so let me go through step by step when you're buying a house. So you identify the property. If you are selected as the purchaser, there are 2 things the person wants right away. They want to know how you're going to pay for it, and they want a deposit. You have to make the deposit before coming to NHT. All right. Of course, you would have approached us before for an eligibility letter, so you know what you're going to use to finance your purchase. And when you get that eligibility letter and you're selected, you can't come to the NHT without proof of deposit. So what we normally do is give you a checklist of the required documents, and among those documents listed is proof of a deposit. So if you come in without that, first of all, you're not going to get a sale agreement and the statement of account and all those other things without making a deposit. And so you wouldn't have the documents to come to the NHT. So simply put, yes, you have to pay the deposit before coming to NHT. But as I said, there's a reason for that. Without paying the deposit, you don't get the documents that we need to process the application. Clear?
Thank you, Ms. Smith. We have 2 other questions for you.
Go ahead.
Well, 3.
All right, I want to ask, I was told that NHT is going to stop giving refund. If that is so, why is it that older person like me is going to pay NHT when I'm not going to benefit?
Okay, I'm not aware of that.
You're not aware of that?
I'm not aware of NHT.
I was told that come January, it would be the last year that we will be getting refund.
No. Come January, let me explain. I think I got it a little bit wrong. Now, public sector workers have been under MOU years ago. And of course, with public sector workers, the increase in wage is normally a single digit. So what has been happening for probably the last 5 years is that the government allowed public sector mortgagers to still get the refund in hand. Okay? Usually when you have a mortgage, the refund is placed at the principal balance on your account. You don't get it in your hand to enjoy January after you have spent off your money in Christmas. Right? But for the past couple of years, the money, you could apply for it as a public sector mortgager and get that money in hand. Come January, public sector mortgagers the refund will be placed to the balance on the mortgage account. But overall, refund will continue. Now, this is very sensitive information. If it were so, I would know. So don't worry about it.
All right.
Got a mortgage, or you're going to be getting your refund come January.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, good evening, Ms. Smith.
Good evening.
As a nanny, I would be considered self-employed, correct?
Yes, correct.
All right, so all these questions I'm going to be asking is in the context of that. I'm self-employed as a nanny.
Yes.
So if I'm self-employed and I wish to start contributing, so I wasn't contributing before, do I simply start contributing for the current year, or do I have to pay for some back years?
I think you must account for the last 3 years. Bear in mind that the registration process is not owned by the NHT, it's a tax admin function. But when I checked the last time, you must account for the last 3 years. So if you were in fact employed and earning an income for the last 3 years, you'd be liable for those years. So what you could do is start fresh, so you start contributing now, but you would have to pay those back years incrementally until you have covered them if you cannot do it at once. So the compliance officer, tax admin will direct you on how to approach that. If it is that you were not working for the past 3 years, they would need proof of who took care of you for the last 3 years. And I think they'd get a letter from that person witnessed by a JP sufficient. However, it could be more information that's available, but as I said, the process is not owned by NHT, it's owned by tax admin.
Okay, and for a year, is that a calendar year or the government financial year?
Calendar year. So the first quarter is January to March and so on and so forth. So you are in the second quarter of the year. So if you start now, you could start now. I believe, again, if you're working from January, you might be asked to pay those back monies, okay?
Yeah.
Or you start fresh January. But if it is that you're looking to benefit sometime soon and you don't want to wait, you can go ahead and just start paying from this current quarter onwards.
Okay, and if I were to be able to pay those 3 years all at once, after paying those, I would be able to immediately qualify for a benefit?
You would not. You would still need to wait the 52 weeks. So let me put, so say tax admin says, okay, pay your 3 years, you pay the 3 years, you registered Monday morning. It is 52 weeks after Monday morning that you'd be able to get the benefit, even though you paid the last 3 years. Because you must wait the 52 weeks and be currently contributing at the time of application.
Okay, and you mentioned that the registration is owned by the tax administration. Do I have to do it online? Or do you know if I have to do it online or I can do everything manually?
It is an online process. You have to do it online. If you go in, you might have issues. You can go in and talk to a compliance officer and they probably navigate the site for you to assist you, or you could use the services of an accountant who is well, aware of the system and familiar with the system and can assist you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, any more questions? All right, so
yes, Smith, we have one final question and then you'll wrap up. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you very much. So I'm happy that my sister brought up that self-employment issue, because it's quite complicated in Jamaica in terms of taxation and stuff like that. So I have a real issue like hers. I've been working outside of Jamaica. So I recently, I came back, started to do a bit of self-employment stuff. I registered, but I stopped doing that particular thing, right? And now I'm trying to, so basically I just wanted to contribute to NHT. And these people got me in this whole taxation thing, which I didn't really bargain for, because at the present moment, I couldn't have done the overseas volunteer thing because of certain process I'm restarting. And so I was just opting with the the Jamaican thing, I didn't realize I was going to be putting all these different taxation things. So now that I've stopped the particular self-employment thing that I was doing, I'm at a place whereby I stopped it right after I, did the application with NHD, and now it's kind of like I'm liable for what I did not get. You see what I mean?
I'm not quite following you.
So in other words, I've not been doing the self-employment thing. So I'm
so
like,
you're not earning an income now.
yeah. So like,
So you should have been advised accordingly. So if you registered, started out as a Mason, and
yeah.
you're no longer a Mason, at the end of the financial period, I think it goes up to the March 31st of each year, you're supposed to file a return. It's called an annual return. And I don't remember the term. It's a SO4 or SO4A. I don't remember which one applies to what I'm about to say. So at the beginning of the year, you would have estimated what you think you're going to earn because you're self-employed. Your income is going to fluctuate. So based on past trends, you would say, you know what, I probably earned $2 million for the year. But at the end of the year, what did you actually earn? So you estimated that you would have earned 2 million, but at the end of the year, you earned 2.5 million. And so you would have to file an annual return and pay the difference, whether it is you overestimated or underestimated. In your case, because you're no longer employed, you have to file just the same. And if it is that you're no longer working, it's a nil return, meaning you earn no money. Otherwise, tax admin is going to call you to say you owe us.
Right. So thank you very much. So my question to you specifically now, as a result of that, is how easy is it now for me to say, so I'm away, how easy is it for me to transition from that which I signed up with initially with NHT to the voluntary contribution kind of thing? How easy is it?
All right, so I want you to make sure you close everything up with tax admin by filing that new return. However,
of course.
When you are a voluntary contributor, we register you. So you come directly to us. It's a pretty simple process. We give you an application form to complete. We do not require proof of income because if you're a resident or a citizen of another country, you're not liable to contribute.
So it can't be done online?
No, it's not. We don't have that platform available. You can. You can, because we've done it in the past for Canadians and other persons in diaspora. Complete the form, send it into our office, and pay that first month's contributions online. But if you're very serious about that, I'm going to leave my number in the chat and I'll direct it to the compliance department who can facilitate the registration process for you.
All right, thank you so very much.
You're welcome. All right, so let's wrap up in 5 minutes. Loans to buy, I already spoke about that, up to 7.5 million. You may co-apply with one other person, or you may co-apply as a triple applicant and obtain up to 21 million. And of course, as under the 3 co-applicant policy, you must show that you are related. You can also access funds to do building. We can buy the land for you up to 3.5 million. And you return for the difference of up to 4 million to do your construction. If you're already a homeowner, you may access our home improvement loan for improvement or expansion, and this amount is $3.5 million. You may also get what we call enablers contribution refund towards deposit, the unclaimed refund, the years not yet due for payment that are sitting in your savings account. We can advance to you to assist you with deposit and other housing related expenses. We have the home grant, which is for persons whose income does not exceed $15,000 per week. You may access a home grant if you've been a contributor for at least 7 years. And this is 3.5 million towards the purchase of a home or towards construction. You can also use your parents' benefit. So your parents can assist you. If mommy or daddy is already a homeowner and they didn't own that home with the assistance of the NHT, they may co-apply with you to assist you with financing. We also have the microfinancing facility, where there are several credit unions who have partnered with us. Under this facility, you may access up to 1.5 million. Conditions apply. To do, especially for those who have land but no titling, may need money to do your titling, or you want to do some home improvement, but you don't want to touch your 3.5 at the NHD, and there are other uses as well. We also have the disability grant, which is now $300,000. So contributing mortgagers, listen, contributing mortgagers who have a disability or care for someone with a disability may access this $300,000 to assist them in retrofitting the home to suit the needs of the person with the disability as well. All right, so that about sums it up. I'll just say as I close that if it is that home ownership is a goal that you wish to accomplish, one of the first and very important things that you must consider is that you need to be saving. All aspects of home ownership, whether purchasing a house or doing your own construction, will require money. Sale agreement, valuation report, surveyor's report. If you're doing construction, you need to pay the architect, you need to pay parish council to approve your plan, and there are other fees as well, okay? So if you want to own a home, start by saving, and the NHD will assist you through one of our enablers and, of course, through our various financing options, okay? Thank you so much for having the NHD with you this
All right.
Pleasure to be here.
We want to thank you as well, Ms. Smith. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for everything that you've done this evening. I know it has been well received, and there are questions, and there are several questions that you've reached out, and you've really done well and justice to that. You did say you would be probably leaving a number in the chat, and I suspect that members of our audience can try to get that number in the chat and reach out if there are any further questions. So, pardon?
I will go ahead and put it.
All right. Thank you. Or we can get that number from you directly. And I know that our other visiting panelist from Jamaica Council for Persons with Disability, I'm not sure if she's still on, but Ms. Pinnock, we want to thank you as well for your contribution this evening and for your presentation. I know in both regards, there are several questions that are still looming, and we are going to try to get those questions to you as much as possible, but to facilitate our stewardship, AY, we thank you for being a part of our meeting this evening. And to our audience, we thank you for your patience. We know many persons are in and out of the meeting, but we know and we hope and trust that you see what we have tried to present to you this evening. And I want to thank you, Caroline, for putting all this together. Boldly say to the crowd, I was just an innocent bystander. But I thank you for that. And to Ms. Smith and Ms. Pinnock, be warned, we'll be trying to show our tangible appreciation to you in some way in the ensuing weeks. So please look out for that. But are there other members of the audience who, if there are any questions, then we can forward those questions, or we can do it at another time. I think time is far spent. I'm not sure if anyone who's here who wants to Vespers, or we can just close in. Yes? Okay, Caroline has the number, so she's going to be putting that number in. But if there's no one else for Vesper, then we can probably just stand and we will close with prayer for the evening. And I want to thank you, audience. You've been amazing. Yes, please, stand. And I thank you, audience. You've been amazing this evening. And shall we just stand as we close out our Sabbath day? Father God, we thank you for your grace and your mercy. And oh God, as we profess to be stewards, we thank you for showing us in other uncertain ways how we can do so. And Lord, we thank you for the persons who have been able to assist us this evening in that quest. We thank you for the audience who have been amazing, and we thank you for the persons who have also helped to put this presentation together. May we, Father, look at every aspect of our lives in which we can be true stewards for your property, for your place, for our lives. And help us to be true stewards as well with our worship and with our emotions. that at the end of the day, oh Father, as we've also gone through a communion service, we may hear the end as good stewards. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful, you have been good stewards. Enter now into the joy that are prepared for you. This is our prayer and our asking in your precious name. Amen.